accent challenge. Oh, it's gonna be lovely. It's gonna be so good. What else are you gonna do with your month? Why not? Come on, give it a go. Yeah, I can definitely do it. The accent challenge is quite splendid indeed. Good morning! Happy Tuesday! What are you eating? Well, coffee, because duh. And some toast with some peanut butter with a flappy D and jelly, and on top are these really great flat pretzels with a dark L, because salty and sweet make for a delicious breakfast treat, right? I'll stick to coffee, thanks. Maybe like a banana or something. Seriously, it's good. Do you want to try some? Today we're looking at General American consonants. Do you want to try some? More for me. When you think of American consonants or the American accent in general, what's the most obvious sound that usually comes to mind? Most people say the R sound, especially if you're from places like the UK or Australia where you have a non-rhotic. That means you remove some of the R sounds way of speaking. In theory, this is actually super duper easy peasy. If there's an R in the word, there's an R in your mouth. As I like to say, if it's long and strong, your R is never wrong. An American R should be a really hard, strong sound. There are actually two ways that people make an R sound. People in the USA tend to use the back of their tongue. So if you think of an R, we're making the space somewhere either in our throat or our mouth. We're making the space where our sound comes out really, really constricted. So it's open, but it's only got a tiny, tiny opening. Most people do that, like I said, with the back of their tongue. So if you're not sure which one you do, try starting with an NG sound. Like that. So the back of your tongue is lifted. And then from there, think of moving the back of your tongue back a little further and try to make a tiny space. Ngr, ngr, ngr. Your tongue, if it's in this position, if you make that kind of R, the tip of your tongue is usually kind of in the middle of nowhere, dancing. And the back of your tongue is going to be high, so your tongue's going to look quite thick. It's really hard to do it with your mouth open. Usually we make this sound with your mouth a little bit closed. Something to practice is that sound. If you're not sure whether you make it, try and keep the tip of your tongue on your bottom teeth, and see if it's at all possible to make an R sound. This might take some practice, and some people just never do. They only make R's in the other way, which is using the tip of your tongue and moving it back. So if you're making an R the opposite way, instead of the back moving up, the tip moves up. And it doesn't touch anything. That's the important thing. So it kind of scoops your tongue into that shape. And that also makes an R sound, but I don't know if you can hear they're a little bit different. Can you hear the first one sounds like it's coming from way far back in your mouth? And the other one sounds a little bit hollow sounding. It's a more open kind of R sound. If you make your R's in this other kind of moving the tip back sort of way, don't freak out. It's not the end of the world. The only downside to doing it that way is that it might affect some of the vowel sounds after that R, so you might have to work a little bit harder just to be sure that your tongue is relaxing back down and not staying up like woo in the middle of your mouth, okay? In words like word, her, girl, stir, sure, heard, there are a lot of them. We don't even insert a little vowel in between the consonant and the R sound. Essentially what we're doing is we're making the R sound with the back of the tongue, and the rest of our mouth is making whatever that other consonant sound is. A great exercise is to start with the R sound and then go through the alphabet and make all of the consonants while you're making the R. It should sound something like this. Start with the R, and then fur, gur, 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 her, lur, 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 mur, 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 pur, etc., etc. Don't forget sounds like sh, sure, 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 chur, 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 ch, or thur, thur. Okay? Here's what we don't want. Burr, 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 cur, cur. You can also play a Serberfern germ where you talk with your tongue in an R position. And you're going to sound really, really cool. Sometimes you might sound like Gollum from Lord of the Rings. Try it, it's really fun. No, seriously, do it. And you're also going to be really good in cartoons if you do. Right? Right? There are a couple situations which are very normal when people are starting out doing a general American accent. If you put some of the R sounds in and remove others of the R sounds, what happens is you end up sounding a little bit like this. Kind of a New York accent, but then not, but then yes, but then no. And it gets a little bit complicated. So that's one option. That tends to happen if you have really hard consonants as well. Or if your consonants are softer and your vowels are longer, what's going to happen is you're going to sound like you're trying to do some sort of South Carolina type of accent. You end up sort of in Georgia, sort of in General American, sort of in the Carolinas. We don't even know. Next we've got the dark L. The dark L. Now, a lot of people know about or have heard about this mysterious dark L sound, but they don't know physically what it is or what it sounds like or how to tell if they're pronouncing it or not. Here's an example of a word without making the L dark. Goal. Goal. Here's that same word with a dark L. Goal. Goal. Can you hear the difference? Maybe you can even see the difference, you snazzy person, you. Basically, if you look up this sound online, you're going to find images of like the mouth and the tip of the tongue is making an L, but the back of the tongue is also doing something. And literally, yeah, that's true, but I found that the best way to get it to sound good is not to try and move the tip of your tongue into an L and the back of your tongue up, because if you watch people talk, that's just not what we do. So I'm going to show you the way that you can get your L sounding dark, and it's a little bit easier than trying to do that. First of all, it's really important to keep in mind what we talked about yesterday of our tongues being really far forward in the mouth, either just behind or even resting on top of our bottom teeth, like that. That position is the reason that we have this dark L sound, so we've got to start there. So, step number 1, relax your jaw. Step number 2, put the tip of your tongue so that it's touching your bottom teeth and your top teeth, almost in the position of like a TH sound, like that, okay? Now, I can't do it and talk at the same time. It's really hard. So what you're going to do is keep your tip of your tongue there and let your whole tongue relax, and keep your jaw relaxed as well. And now I want you to feel this part slightly further back on your tongue. You want to feel it kind of relaxing onto the back of your top teeth, up there, or even on that alveolar ridge, which is just behind your top teeth. Can you feel it? If you can't feel it, try closing your mouth a little bit more. And having your tongue at the back of your teeth instead. So now that you're in that position, I want you to try and make an L sound. Oh, oh. Can you see the tip of my tongue is still there? Kind of far down. Oh, oh. Oh. Literally, what's happening is instead of using the tip of my tongue to make an L, my tongue is further forward. So if these are my teeth, it's not doing this behind them. It's doing this, and the tip is down. And if you'll notice, in order to get into that position, what happens is the back also lifts, and it puts our tongue in the perfect position for that dark L sound. If, when you try to make the L, instead an N comes out, that means the sides of your tongue are too wide and they're closing the space completely instead of leaving a little gap. Okay? It's a little bit hard to do with my mouth that far open, but I think you can see it and I think you get the idea. So a really great thing to do would be to actually pause this video now and grab a mirror and try out those steps. Relax, tip of the tongue between the top and bottom teeth, lift this slightly further towards the middle part of your tongue so it's touching the back of your top teeth, and try to make an L sound from there. Another very prominent feature of General American English are the T sounds, and there are actually 4 of them. I know it can be overwhelming, but just hear me out, and then you can listen and see if you can identify different kinds of sounds that I've mentioned. The more you're aware of them when you're listening, the more your body will adjust and start to make them naturally. Number 1, what I call the legit T. This is the T sound that we think of when we see the letter T. T. Remember that it's voiceless. And what happens with the legit T is that we should hear and feel this sort of puff of air come out with the T sound. And this happens in words that begin with a T or where a T is at the start of a stressed syllable. Examples of this could be words like time or attach. Number 2 is what I like to call the sticky T. We find this T at the ends of sentences or before commas, and we also hear it most of the time before another consonant sound. So to make the sticky T, imagine you have some delicious peanut butter left over from your breakfast on the tip of your tongue, and it's going to move up to make a T, and it's stuck, and we can't move it. So instead of that puff of air that comes out, we don't hear anything. It sounds like this. Do you know what? I eat a lot. Number 3, a glottal stop. That little feeling where you close the sound off in your throat. This usually happens in General American English right before an M or an N sound. So we hear it in situations like don't mean, that no one. We don't say that no one, that no one. And number 4, you'll recognize it. It's called, are you ready for it? The flappy D. And it's that sound, flappy D, E-D. This is the sort of lightly tapped D-like sound that we hear in American words such as better, butter, water. We find the flappy D in between 2 different vowel sounds, like in the examples that I just gave, or between an R and another vowel, such as in the word started. The next sound is the ing. For General American, I'm going to recommend that you always pronounce the ing as an ing, a real ng sound in the back of your mouth where your tongue lifts up. This is because even though some General American speakers change some of these sounds into just an N, it can be a little bit dangerous for people to do it when they're learning the accent. It's something that can easily turn you into that kind of New Yorker again. Or you could find yourself heading down to we don't know where. Next, the letter H. You'll often hear General American speakers drop the letter H at the start of words or syllables that are not stressed. However, we always put the H on the words have, has, or had. I wanted to tell her that she was clearly just having a bad day and that her haircut looked fine. Lastly, when we have a T before a Y, it sounds like a sort of soft CH. I really want you to tell your dad what I got you for your birthday. And when we have a D before a Y, it sounds like a soft J, a J kind of sound. Did you hear what he said when you ended your song? Those are all of the prominent consonant sounds that make General American a little bit different from other accents, or the sounds that I've found over the years that people have a little bit of trouble pronouncing correctly for General American. You can assume that all of the other sounds are pretty normal. TH is TH, N is N, etc., etc. So go ahead, go and listen to some Americans, go off and practice your speech. And something I really recommend, especially if you come from an accent that removes some of the R sounds, is to go through your script and circle or highlight every single R. Be especially careful about tiny, insignificant words like for and or and are that we usually don't emphasize. Please remember that these are just guidelines. Even within the same General American accent, there's a little bit of regional and individual variation. Some people, like I said, don't pronounce the ing all the time. Other people do. Some people tend to use more of the flappy D. Other people tend to pronounce their T's properly. The more people you listen to, the more you'll notice these little subtle differences, and you'll find the General American that's right for you. I've included 2 listening activities with your email today, so be sure to go and get those done. Tomorrow, we'll be getting into those American vowel sounds. We sure will. But right now, I'm kind of hungry again. Can we go get, like, a hot dog? You literally just ate. Okay, fine. But I'm at least getting some more coffee. Yeah, I guess, but don't overdo it. Have fun practicing. With the consonant sounds, especially the T's, I always tell people, trust your instincts. Instincts. If you try something like instinct and it doesn't sound right to you, it's probably not right. Go back to those 4 T options and pick another one. See how that sounds. The more you listen to American speakers, the more you'll naturally, instinctively know what's what, and your body will respond accordingly. Don't forget to do the muscle exercises as well. See you tomorrow. Bow, wow, 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 wows. Bow, wow, 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 wows. Vowels, vowels, vowels. Bye.